So this is your brand new 5th generation Subaru Impreza. This is an important car for Subaru because they sell a lot of them. More importantly, this is the first one that gets the new Subaru Global Platform. This will underpin all future Subaru models. So it better be a good platform. I'm here to report that thankfully, it is just that. We're testing this on the roads outside of San Diego, which are many and wonderful. And this isn't a WRX. The Impreza and the WRX are separate vehicles now. At least that's what Subaru says. For having the base revised 2-liter boxer engine under the hood, this thing moves. It doesn't have a ton of power, but the chassis is pretty wonderful. The whole vehicle is stiffer. That improves NVH, it improves handling. I'm specifically in the sport model, which has these wider 225 series tires on 18-inch wheels, and it's handling these roads wonderful. Now, the steering itself, there's a little bit of numbness here. This has a revised electronic power steering system, and you know electronic power steering systems don't give you a lot of feel anyways. They did increase the steering ratio from 16:1 to 13:1. So it is more responsive and it's snappy, but you can't tell what those front wheels are doing at all. And that's a bit of a bummer, but there's decent weight, and the rest of the chassis makes up for the lack of the enjoyability or feel that you would want out of the steering. Under the hood, we're dealing with the revised version of the 2-liter boxer engine. It's making 152 horsepower and 148 pound-feet of torque. And it's not very powerful. But again, this isn't a WRX. This is an Impreza that's going to get high 20s in the city in terms of fuel economy and well into the 30s on the highway. And it's going to do that with all-wheel drive while its competition does it with front-wheel drive. That's pretty impressive. So with that boxer motor, it's backed up by a CVT. Now, there's a manual stepped mode that simulates 7 forward gears. If you are just doing part acceleration, it's a smooth, typical CVT. If you floor it and it's in the automatic or CVT mode, whatever, it does a more, it almost feels like an automatic where it's shifting. It's obviously not, but it gives you this sensation that it is, because a lot of people still kind of want that. On the outside, the car looks pretty different than the prior Impreza. It looks nice. It's handsomely sculpted on the sides. They did really nice buffed out wheel arches. I don't love the taillights on this car. I know that's kind of nitpicky, but the front end looks great. If you look at the fascia and the headlights, it's designed to invoke visions of the boxer engine behind it. And that's kind of a cool feature, and I think it's a neat little styling exercise here without going overboard. On the inside, they've cleaned up the cabin space wonderfully. There's a nice big new screen you can get. On base models, it's about a 6.5 inch touchscreen. And the base model comes with CarPlay and Android Auto. So though you won't get nav on it, you can use the nav on your phone through Apple CarPlay. So problem solved there. Step up to the premium and the limited and the sport, and you can get this larger 8-inch screen. And it looks great. The graphics are super sharp. It reminds me of the upper screen of the 2 screens you'd find in a modern Infiniti. So that's pretty nice. Now there's another screen or display cluster beyond that, which seems unnecessary. You have the information display in the center of the gauge cluster here behind the steering wheel. You have the center stack, which controls, your radio, your nav, if it's equipped, your phone, all that stuff. And then another information display up there. I feel like they could parse the stuff they're trying to display there, split it between the 2 screens where it makes most sense, and just do it that way. That is just kind of busy. Design, like just someone went a little further with design work than they needed to. So we've been caning this car pretty hard. Miles here has been driving the wheels off the thing, but very comfortably so. It never feels out of sorts, even though it's that lesser powered engine than we would find in a car like the WRX. This thing really does well on these roads. The chassis is super planted. The revised suspension feels great. That extra stiffness, and it's 70% stiffer than the outgoing car, adds up to just better handling. And it shows in this car, and it's a real pleasure to toss down these roads. Now, you're gonna have to build up your speed. It's a great example of slow car fast, which is usually something you talk about in smaller cars. But I think it applies here with the new Impreza. We like slow car fast. Slow car fast is fun. You have to work harder for your enjoyment, but you don't have to work that hard because you're having a blast on it. Now the car itself is longer, lower, and wider. That's the trifecta that the packaging people want to get you excited about the new model. There's a little bit more legroom in the back. There's more passenger volume, and the interesting thing is that Subaru is best in class for passenger volume, but they're not the biggest in their class. So they managed to have a car that looks good and isn't some gigantic car that should be stretching a class above, yet you have the most interior space. That's a nice little trick of engineering and design. So another part of the big news about why this car is very important for Subaru is because this is the first Impreza built in the United States. This car is going to be built in Indiana. The rest of the market, those Imprezas will be built overseas, but our Impreza is built at SIA, Subaru of Indiana Automotive. It's pretty cool. It is a nice selling point, and jobs in America are a great thing. So kudos to Subaru for investing a lot more money into its Indiana location and being able to churn out more Imprezas. And they're going to need to churn out more Imprezas because their lofty sales goals are going to need these to sell well. Starting back in 2002, Subaru used to have pretty flat sales. They were always right around 200,000 units for years. And then something changed and the car started getting better. And the sales arrow, the sales chart just started rising and rising. This year, they're going to do a little over 600,000. Next year, they think they could be closer to 700,000, and then their goal beyond that is 800,000 cars. That's a lot of Subarus, and it's great to see a fun brand like Subaru being sold in larger numbers in the United States. So the Impreza will be important to those goals. So buy them. Now, here's another reason you should buy this car. Subaru, in a move similar to what Mazda is doing, they're going to offer, beyond the base model, you can get this sport version with a manual gearbox. So you can buy a Subaru Impreza Sport with a stick. Now, it's a 5-speed manual, which is interesting. You would expect to have a 6-speed. I mean, my 65 Ford pickup is a 4-speed. But I guess, 5-speed is all the car needs. It doesn't matter. We're just super happy that you're not stuck with buying the cheapest version just to get the stick. Now, this sport version that we're in right now, it has the optional moonroof, this upgraded Harman Kardon sound system, which sounds pretty good, and it's just under $27,000. So you also have a great value proposition. Now, if you can't tell, I kind of like this car. I don't like the numb steering. I don't like the taillights. The taillights being a nitpick, the steering being a little bit more serious. But other than that, even with the steering, it's been a blast to drive around San Diego. We're on the highway now. NVH has been improved, so it's a quieter ride. The seats are comfortable. There's more bolstering than the outgoing model. There's a lot to love here. Now, as exciting as this car is, we really can't wait to see what the WRX and the STI look like on the Subaru Global Platform. Those cars are going to shine. Hopefully, I'm sure we'll have much better steering tuning, and the rest of the chassis is already brilliant. So if they can already make it better from there, we're heading to good places, folks. Now, I know my nose sounds a little bit stuffy. I'm just getting over a cold.
What? Wait, you said you had allergies.
Yeah, allergies. Sorry, Miles. But our Impreza is built in Indiana at Subaru. What is it? Subaru Indiana Automotive, right? Subaru of Indiana Automotive.